here, and it's going to go onto our shul's YouTube channel, Beit Knesset Hanasi, as we do with all of our shiurim, our daily chizuk. Rebbe, now we're ready to roll.
Okay. So a very good day to everyone. We're in the Perek Gimel of Avot, and we're at Mishnah Bet, which is an interesting Mishnah, if I can put it in that way. Everything in Avot is eternal. It's meant for every generation. But everything in Avot was said within a context of the world that it was said in. And therefore, in order, I think, to truly appreciate what is being said and the idea that's being expressed, we have to know what was the background for it. So here we have a Mishnah that's like out of the blue. With the previous Mishnah that we had, Aryeh ben Mahalalel, so that spoke about where were we created, what about mortality, who are we responsible for, and most of Avot deals in those terms, deals in terms of morality, behavior, how people are supposed to be. Here is a strange Mishnah. So the Mishnah says that Rabbi Chanina Sgan HaKohanim. The name Chanina is like the Hebrew name Hananiah. It was a very popular name during Bayesheni. We have Tanoim and Amoraim named Chanina. Some say again that it's really a Hebrew name and it should be a hey at the end. So it's like Chani, have mercy upon me, Ko, God should have mercy upon me. Some say it's an Aramaic name because it ends in an aleph. But even if it was an Aramaic name, it's also a Hebrew name. Chanina, please have mercy upon me, give me chayim. In any event, he was the Sgan HaKohanim. Now, who are the Sgan HaKohanim? The second in command of the Kohanim. So here a little historic perspective is in order. In the time of the Bayesheni, from the time of the Hashmonaim onwards, the Bayesheni is really divided into three epochs. The first is the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, until the time of Alexander the Great, until the time that the Greeks came. The second is the era of the Hashmonaim, the 103 years of the Hashmonaim kings. All of the Hashmonaim were Kohanim. So they were at one and the same time Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and they were the head of the government, which idea was opposed by the rabbis. They said the kahuna is enough for you, the hanach l'chol keser malchus, leave the royalty, leave the running of the country to others. There's always a problem of the concentration of power. And power is, it's an addiction. Little power means that you want to have more power. And power is always achieved at the expense of others. Because that's the definition of power. I can tell you what to do, so I'm powerful. So, and then the third time was from the time of Herod until the time of the Churban. That was a time when the Jewish government, quote unquote, was really only a puppet government of the Romans. The Romans were the ones that had the power and executed the power, and the Jewish leadership, the king, so to speak, was merely a puppet. So Rabbi Chanina Sgan HaKohanim belongs to this third area, the area of Herod. Now, the Kohanim were organized in different families. There were 24 different groupings of the Kohanim, and they each rotated as far as working in the Beit HaMikdash was concerned. Everyone worked 2 weeks a year, and then there were four of them worked 3. So that's how you got to 52 weeks. And when it came time for Yom Tov, all the Kohanim worked together. So it took an organization. It's not today I feel like it, I don't feel like it, it's my turn, it isn't my turn. So they had to have a system. Now, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, who was the titular head of the Kohanim, like many times, the person whose name appears is not the person who runs the show. He's not involved in the details. He doesn't say, Ben Yoda, this is your turn there. He doesn't. He's above it. He's the Kohen HaGadol Me'echad. He's supposed to be the spiritual head, Anyone that gets involved in the nitty-gritty of things automatically will bring about people that disagree with him and that even will disrespect him. How come how come he gave me these 2 weeks to work in the Beit HaMikdash? These 2 weeks I want to go. All of us want to go on vacation. We don't want to. He doesn't like us. All of the things that every administrator knows. And no administrator escapes the criticism of those whom he administers. You can ask any principal of a school. No principal will get 100% vote. The only ones who get 100% votes are rabbis. But otherwise, human nature is human nature. So the man that was in charge of the details, so to speak, was the Sgan HaKohanim. Sgan means the assistant, the vice president, so to speak. It's interesting that this not only existed with the Kohanim, but existed with the Levim as well. We have a remembrance of that in the fact that many Levite families until today are called Segel, which is the abbreviation for Sgan Levim, or Sgan Leviyah, that they are descended from those that were in charge of the Levim. So the Kohanim had that as well. It was an official title. And it denoted the person that was the administrative head of the kahuna here, of the Sgan HaKohanim, and he was the one that really was in charge of the Beit HaMikdash. We all will know that many times in a government department, for instance, there can be somebody who's the minister, but it's the Mankal that really runs it. And the Mankal is the Sgan HaKohanim. So he says a strange thing, like Ranga Hakti mitten in the middle, all of a sudden he said something. But knowing the background, we'll understand what he's talking about. That the Jewish people generally and individually should pray for the welfare of the government. Because if it were not for the government, for the police, for law enforcement, for the army, we would have anarchy. That people would swallow their neighbor, their next door neighbor whole. They wouldn't even bother to chew them up, just swallow them up. So here, in this Mishnah, which, as I mentioned, is almost a mysterious Mishnah, is encapsulated a lot of history and also a lot of attitude, which exists until our time, if we think about it. I think one of the perhaps many advantages of the difficult situation that we find ourselves in is that we have time to think about things that we never really thought about. Like all of a sudden, I realized that it takes me almost an hour in the morning to daven Shachris, when the good old Beit Knesset Hanassi in normal days, it never took me that long. But, you're by yourself, so I guess you have time to think, that otherwise you don't have time, because otherwise we're busy, right? I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to go. Here I have nowhere to go. So, what do you say? What kind of malchus is he talking about? So there are a few things I think that we have to understand. First of all, the nature of people is to resent government. We are born to be free. We're born to do what we want to do. We don't want that other people should tell us what to do. Other people includes the government, whatever government. And from the beginning of time till today, human beings have struggled with this concept of how to balance the individual freedom of a person and yet have an ordered society. Because if it's all individual freedom, then that's anarchy. And the Torah describes it for us, the Tanakh described it for us, that at the time of the Shoftim, for instance, when the Jewish people were in the land of Israel and there was no formal government, so Isha Yosher Be'enov Yatse. Everybody did what they want to do. Well, that's great. But you can't live in a world where everybody's doing what they want to do. A world without discipline, without order, without beginning, without an end. So then where do my rights end? What rights do I have to give up? So that was the system of government. And we find throughout Jewish history, the Jewish people resented it. They don't like government. They didn't like Moshe. The Korach says the most famous democratic line in the Torah, right? Everybody is great, right? Who gave you the right? What do you tell me what to do? I'll tell you what to do. And that's a tremendous rallying point. And that's built into the Jewish psyche. That the individual has enormous rights. And that, in fact, it's the individual that many times counts more than the society as a whole. And we find that confirmed in the Torah over again. And Noach is more important than the society he lived in. That's why he was saved. Avram Avinu, he's the only one. Avram Ivri, Kol Olam Kulam Eivarecha, Umever Hasheni. The whole world's on one side, he's on the other side. And the Lord takes into account individuals. And because of individuals, all of history has changed. By what an individual does. So we look at it as accidents of history, so to speak, but there are no accidents. How individuals behave, That is what creates the big picture. So in Jewish life, there never was a government that was popular. David HaMelech is not popular. You read Tehillim, it talks about his enemies, revolutions against him. We imagine, in the time of Mashiach will come, everybody will be happy with the government. The Rambam doesn't think that way, and I don't think that way either. Who am I? But there'll be those that will say, he's not the one. Doesn't know what he's doing. I could do a better job. And this expresses itself throughout Jewish history. There always is an undercurrent of the individual versus the society, the individual good versus the collective good. We have an example now, right? People have called me up, I'm sure they called up every rabbi in the world. I have to say Kaddish. So I want to make a minyan. It's only I'll get 9 other people and we'll stand 10 feet away from each other in the backyard, and so what? And so that's the individual good. I'm entitled. I have this Kaddish. The general good is that we don't want anybody to gather, because we want this scourge somehow to pass. And according to the best scientific evidence that we have as of this moment, this is the way to fight it. Whether or not that will bear itself out in actuality, we don't know yet. But we have no choice, right? So the government enforces it. They send the police. Here, there were people that had weddings in their backyard. So it was the chas and kala and the parents, and there were 10 people. And the police came in the middle of the chuppah. So, first of all, I don't know how you can make a Jewish wedding without a smorgasbord, but, look, my wedding, I'm entitled to do what I want. So the individual good is always somehow contradictory to the general good. And we resent when the general good is imposed upon us. And we saw that by Moshe Rabbeinu, Dasan Aviram said at the beginning, Misom Chalish, who are you? Yeah. Halorgeni Atomer, that you think you can kill me? What, you have authority? Who gave you authority? What? Mr. Moses? And that's throughout Jewish history from the beginning till today. It's a given. It explains so much that goes on in our society. So we hide it, theological reasons, historical reasons, halachic reasons. That's all the cover story. That's not the story. The story is human nature. Who gave you the right to make this state? Why should you make the laws? Why should it be made in the image that you want it to be made? So I don't want to have anything to do with it. That's really the issue. A deep psychological issue. Now, in the time of Hanina Skan HaKohanim, he's at the time when Agrippus, the descendant of Herod. So there were a number of kings, Agrippus. That's the one who they named the street after, because there was a very good Agrippus who was truly Jewish and who had the interests of the Jewish people at heart over that of the Romans. He was the final Agrippus at the time of the Churban. But in his time, And in the time of Hanina Sgan HaKohanim, the Jewish people chafed under the rule of the Romans. They don't want the Romans. They want it to be independent. The Gemara itself quotes the different opinions of great Tanoim. How should we view the Romans? So Rabbi Yehuda said the Romans are great. Look at that. Look at the bridges. Look at the highways, the aqueducts, the system. Rome is the whole civilized world. And Rabbi Shimon dissented. He said everything that they do that looks good is only because of themselves. They want power. That's why they're doing it. It really is bad. It's not good. So here you have two great people viewing the same set of circumstances. How do they view it? One views it from the side of the individual. So everything the Romans do is cruel and pursuit of power. And the other views it from the side of society. Look, they have great markets and malls and roads, and the country is quiet, and the police work, and it's gewaldic, it's tremendous. So which view do we take? The answer is there's always these two views. Nevertheless, Rabbi Hanina Sgan HaKohanim says that one should always pray for the welfare of the government, even if I don't like the government. Even if I am of the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Now, during this period of time, there was a revolutionary party in Israel that rebelled against the Romans and, in effect, caused the destruction of the temple and the beginning of the exile, the Churban. They fought the Romans from the year 63 till the year 70. Really it's the year 73 when Masada fell. A long and bitter war with all of the consequences that war brings. Because they wanted their independence, they didn't want to be part of Rome. Whereas, interestingly enough, the rabbis, the Prushim, were the peace party. They said that we should not engage in this revolution, this rebellion. We're not going to defeat Rome. The main thing is to build Torah within the Jewish people. And this alternate universe that we're going to build, the universe of Torah and halacha and Jewish tradition and Jewish life, will survive. The Romans, eventually they'll go away, which is what happened, even though no one imagined that it ever could have happened. So he comes, Hanina Sgan HaKohanim, and he comes and he says we should pray for the welfare of the government, even if we don't like the government. Because the choice is anarchy. That's the other choice. Ish Yisrael Chaim Blo. So in every country in the world, including the state of Israel, there are neighborhoods that the police will not enter. Here in the United States, it's well known there are such places. They're almost cities. So in those areas, it's Ish Yisrael Chaim Blo. Nothing can be enforced. You're in the hands of extremists and violent people, and all sorts of perversions are allowed to flourish. So the government is not there. So if you want to know what it looks like when the government is not there, go look in those cities, in those neighborhoods, in those areas. And then you have a picture. And then you have the choice. Now, throughout Jewish history, we have had, because we've been a minority, we've been in exile because of all the persecutions. We've had many a government that was inimical to us, and that's hard to pray for. The famous Jewish anecdote that when Tsar Alexander lay dying, so the Russian Orthodox Church sent Russian priests into the synagogues to force the Jews to pray for the welfare of the king, of the Tsar. So they wanted a volunteer to lead the services. So they couldn't, people were very reticent to do so, because the Tsar was bitter anti-Semite, an evil person. They didn't want to pray that he should get better. But they had no choice. So they sent up a plain Jew, and he said to the priest, I'm going to say 4 verses from Psalms. Is that all right? From Tehillim. Oh. So he said, okay, go ahead. So he said, Lamake Malachim Gedolim Kelolam Chazdo. Vayaro Malachim Machim Kelolam Chazdo. Sichon Melach Amori Kelolam Chazdo. Lo'og Melach Haboshen Kelolam Chazdo. Those were the 4 verses, and he sat down. Now the irony in that is that that's how they really felt. So you cannot say that the Jews who lived under Tsarist persecution should pray for the Tsars. You can't say the Jews that lived in Germany in 1933 or 34 should pray for Hitler. And you certainly couldn't say that the Jews who lived under the communists should pray for Stalin. So it became always a great moral issue, a delicate issue, a 2-tiered issue. There was the official tier, you had to pray for the government. But then there was the second tier, how do you really feel about it? What do you think it leads to? And that remains, almost until today, issues that exist within us. Unsettled issues. So we know that, for instance, there's the segment of the Jewish people that will not say the prayer for the Israeli government. And they're living here in Israel. Why? Because they feel that morally, whatever, religiously, they're wrong. Shouldn't have been. Does that give you the right to ignore the fact that there is an ordered society, there's a police force, there's an army that defends you, there's someone that builds the roads, there's someone that makes it possible to live? That is a moral issue. It's a hard, hard nut. And because of the fact that over the centuries, the Jews have always been ambivalent about it, it's never been exactly clear. We pray for kings that we wish that they didn't survive. Therefore, I remember in the United States when I was a child, when I was already almost a teenager, the Jews in Chicago on the West Side, my father's synagogue, they voted 100% in block for the Democratic Party, for Franklin Roosevelt, and then later for Harry Truman. the United States then, and even today to a great extent, if you're Jewish, you're voting Democrat no matter what. It's a tenet of faith. So in 1952, the Republican Party nominated General Dwight D. Eisenhower, and he won the election. Now, until then, every Shabbos in Shul, the Gabbai would recite the prayer for the American government. And they'll say, Shul Avlochim, Amshallah, Stilim. Yavorech is our president. They would say the name, Roosevelt, Truman. When Eisenhower won, they stopped saying the prayer. Even though Eisenhower was not anti-Jewish, nobody's, but that's it. It's not my government. It's not my government the way I want it. I don't have to pray for it. And that is the measure here. That makes this an interesting Mishnah. Because when he says heaven is followed by Shlomo Shel Malchus, he means every Malchus, even the one that you don't like. And that requires a certain self-sacrifice of the individual freedom that one feels that one is entitled to. I want to conclude by giving you an alternate pshat. Chassidim say it's not the pshat in the Mishnah, but it's a good idea. Heaven is followed with Shlomo Shel Malchus. Pray that the Malchus should be a Malchus of Shalom, of goodness, harmony, that it should consider everybody together. Shalom is like Sholem, right? Because since the government has so much power, we have to be mispalel that we should have a good government. That's what the mispalel b'shlomo shel malchus means. That we should have a government that really is concerned about us, and that does rise above all the personal animosities and differences. And that, because it's Sheil Mole, if we don't have such a government, then people feel Ish Yisrael Chaim B'lo. That's not the pshat in the Mishnah, but it's a good idea. And maybe it's an idea that we should have in our minds when we do pray for the welfare of the government. Is that the government should also have in mind the welfare of the people. So I think this is a very interesting mission, and it's out of the usual flow of the Mishnayos here in Avot, but the Avot itself says, Afochpo the Kulebo. Turn over the Mishnah, turn over the Torah, study it one way, or look at it a different way, everything is there. And I think we have a greater understanding now of the power of government than we had a few months ago. Government says, stay home. Everybody stays home. Close your business. Go broke. So this should be taken into consideration. So I thank you again for listening. Continuing our Pirkei Avos. Next week again at this time, God willing, you should all be well, and you should listen to the government of Beit Knesset Hanasi that is blessed with wisdom and has as its Kohen Gadol, Rabbi Goldberg. Kol Tuv, my friends, stay well and have a great, great week.
Thank you, Rabbi Wein, very, very much. We very much appreciate it. And now, not just on behalf of our Shul of Beit Knesset Hanasi, but on behalf of over 300 people that came to listen from Destiny from all over, we want to wish the Rav a lot of bracha and atzlacha and health and happiness. It's also, before we unmute everybody, just two announcements. Number one is tomorrow I'm going to be doing the 5 o'clock shir. But on Tuesday, we have a special program for Yom HaZikaron, one of the students who was on my soldier program that we came to New York, Prime Leadership. He's going to be coming and speaking. He fought in the last Mivtza. He lost some of his friends, unfortunately, in the battle.